Hey everybody, welcome to another episode here on Bully Whispers, and we are here today to evaluate the first of Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, Never Outshine the Master, in the series The Wire. Now, when thinking about Law 1 in The Wire, Marlo, Stanfield, and Prop Joe are usually the first two people to pop into fans' minds, but they really aren't a great example of the law in action. They may be the best example of the reversal of the law, but we'll get to that later. Everything in The Wire is actually so interconnected that there aren't really any clear-cut one-to-one parallels, but the underlying reasons behind the law are quite apparent throughout the show. So in this episode, we will be evaluating the benefits of following Law 1 through Slim Charles, the consequences of violating it through Omar, two key factors in making it work through Michael Lee and D'Angelo Barksdale, as well as the reversal of the law, which is where we run into Marlo and Prop Joe. Now, there are many ways to outshine, and the historical example given isn't even someone who was just so good that the boss thought that they would take his job. In his case, he just drew too much attention to himself. Nicolas Fouquet was King Louis XIV's finance minister, and in an effort to showcase his value to the king, and hopefully improve his status, he put on a lavish party. Through this party, he intended to demonstrate his popularity, connections, and overall high society good taste.
Now, flourish the pinky.
It did not go over well.
We got tarred and feathered for being sodomite.
Instead of being impressed, the notably insecure king thought that Fouquet was flaunting his wealth, and he was arrested the next day and sent to an isolated prison for the rest of his life. In this respect, Slim Charles is on safe ground because he's a very low-key guy, but the main purpose behind the law isn't just to keep from showing up the boss, it's to keep him from thinking you could take his spot. And Slim still seems to be no threat in that regard either.
Slim, I want you to take over Hungry Man's slice of the cake.
Meaning no disrespect, but I ain't cut out to be no CEO.
Now, despite turning down the offer from Marlo, a good case can be made that Slim did, in fact, want to be CEO, so to speak, but he kept his intentions hidden. I'm actually currently debating between making that the topic of its own episode, or including it as part of the Power Law 3 episode. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Either way, as far as everyone knows, he has no intentions of taking over, which is why he's able to switch crews so easily and at such a high level, going from Avon's crew to Prop Joe's before turning down the offer from Marlo. However, simply not wanting to take over doesn't mean much if you're useless. You must make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and Slim clearly understood one of the key principles of the first law. For powerful people, glory and reputation are more important than truth.
If it's a lie, then we fight on that lie. But we gotta fight.
In Slim's case, he also survived till the end by always making his bosses appear stronger, as he was a ruthless and effective soldier who was not afraid to die.
Finish.
Which is necessary when dealing with the many dangers in the Baltimore drug trade, one of which is Omar.
Yo, so come on, yo, Omar's coming, man. Oh, shit.
Omar is a legendary stick-up artist.
And I stress the word artist.
And though he is working from the outside, not the inside, the base premise remains the same. He shows up major dealers like Avon and Marlo by robbing them, which inspires fear and insecurity because it threatens their position. Now, while I could have chosen a few people for this part, I chose Omar specifically because he was outside all of the kingdom, so to speak, and this provides us an opportunity to examine how different degrees of outshining can elicit different responses. Just like the kingpins, the police department is a master in its own right, yet they really didn't care about Omar until he was falsely accused of killing a civilian, because despite his many crimes, he didn't kill or rob civilians, so he didn't make them look bad. It's important to note that this wasn't a learned tactical maneuver in order to avoid the police. Omar had been that way since he was a kid.
We took $16 from that man on his way home from work.
16 more than we had, Mom.
Anthony, get it back.
Say what? Omar, man.
And as a result, the police never really bothered to look for him like they did the people that made them look bad. Now, even though the cops may not be obsessing over Omar, the bosses he shows up regularly are.
Yo. We doubling down on Sweet Lips.
Now, I'm doubling the bounty. 100 large for a whiff of that dick suck. 250 for his head.
So much so that when he returns to Baltimore towards the end of the series, his death was pretty much a foregone conclusion. Even though he ended up getting taken out by Kennard, he had outshined too many dangerous people to survive in Baltimore, and when contrasted with Slim's success going low-key, It's easy to think that outshining as a whole is a bad thing, but this isn't necessarily the case. One of the key principles in Law 1 is that when you shine, you will have haters, and you can't spend your life worrying about the petty feelings of others, which can be seen through Michael Lee. Michael provides an excellent example of someone who doesn't mind haters and is willing to put aside the feelings of others on his quest, both personally and professionally. In his personal life, in one of the sadder scenes in the series, he leaves his little brother behind and Dookie at the encampment before going on his way.
And I can still hang with you then.
You know I'm too hot.
And in his professional life, he wasn't worried about haters, as he and Snoop always had somewhat of a contentious relationship. Ultimately, even though his hand was forced, Michael ended up stepping out on his own and was shaping up to be the next Omar, but it's important to note that both he and Omar were only able to accomplish this due to their own merits. Neither of them needed the backing of a bigger player to enable them to operate in the way that they did, which brings us to D'Angelo Barksdale and another one of Greene's historical examples. Sen no Rikyu was a premier artist of the tea ceremony and a beloved advisor to the emperor. But in 1591 he made a statue of himself wearing sandals, a sign of nobility, which he wasn't, and placed it in the most important temple in the palace. As a result, he was arrested and sentenced to death, but killed himself before he could be executed. He had grown so comfortable in his position that he felt as though he had the same status as nobility. He had forgotten that his position depended entirely upon the emperor's blessing, and acted as though he had earned it on his own, which ended up costing him his life. From the beginning of the series, we see D'Angelo acting foolish by committing a murder unnecessarily in front of witnesses, and getting away with it because his uncle Avon is a powerful figure who can take care of it. But it's once he's in prison that we get to see a glimpse of how he thinks he is much tougher than he actually is.
Kid, you better think.
Where the fuck is Wallace?
Being used to be able to get away with foolish behavior, he thought he could make a scene, challenge his superiors, and nothing would happen. Now, while Avon wasn't the one who ended up taking him out, D'Angelo clearly held a high opinion of his own status and independence, completely overlooking how much of it was due to his relationship with Avon, and it ended up costing him his life. So between Omar and D'Angelo getting killed, Michael, whose story we don't get to see, but will probably end up like Omar's, and Slim making it till the end, we seem to be heading right back in the direction of never outshining the Master. But this is where we get to Marlo, Prop Joe, and the reversal of Law 1. If you are always going low-key and never outshining those above you, then you will basically end up waiting for everyone else to go out on their own, and hopefully you'll end up with the top spot through natural succession, which can be a lengthy and uncertain process. The key is knowing when and how to take power. But before digging into that, I'm going to take a second to address why I don't think Marlo is a good example of the law in action. The main line of thought is that Marlo hid his own strength and intelligence while acting like he needed help from Prop Joe in order to get closer and seize power, all of which is directly from the book on how to do it. But here's the thing. Marlo never hid his strength, as everyone knew he was a force, which is why Prop Joe approached him to begin with, nor was he acting like he needed Prop Joe's help. He actually needed it. He didn't have Prop Joe's connections in or knowledge of law enforcement to help with anti-surveillance and avoiding search warrants, nor did he have Prop Joe's political or drug connections, all of which he would need in order to take the Baltimore crown. What Marlo did do with Prop Joe was conceal his true intentions, but that's something we will get into in the Power Law 3 episode. According to Greene, if the Master is firm in their position, be patient. He will eventually be weak, and that's exactly what Marlo did until he met Joe's connect. At that moment, in terms of power, Prop Joe became a shell of his former self. Now, while Joe did a masterful job of creating the illusion of strength where there was actually weakness, something I dig into in the episode evaluating how Machiavellian Prop Joe was, link at the end of the video, his power lied in his exclusive control of the Greek connection, and when Marlo gained access, Prop Joe's power was gone. At this point, the only thing left for Marlo to do is to decide how to take power from Prop Joe, and of course Marlo chooses to kill him. Of course, at this point, Prop Joe does offer to just leave the game, which Marlo rejects because he doesn't believe him, but even if he did, Greene warns against showing mercy, noting that the boss did not show any mercy during their own rise to power, so even if Prop Joe was telling the truth and would have retired, Marlo still handled it correctly by picking the right time and situation to outshine Prop Joe according to Law 1. Personally, I don't think Joe would have stayed retired, but let me know what you think down in the comments section. Well, thanks for watching this episode here on Bully Whispers. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you at the next score. Anyways, due to inflation, $18.42 a pound.